Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tanya Reinhardt, and on behalf of the University of KwaZulu-Natal's College of Agriculture, Engineering and Science, I would like to welcome you to our second National Science Week talk. Before I introduce our guest speaker for this evening, again, we have some house rules, so you have to listen to us, unfortunately. So please make sure that you have muted your microphone. If you don't know, it's at the bottom left of your screen, and it needs to have a red line across. Please also switch off your camera to save bandwidth. And I got kicked out last night because of problems with bandwidth. We will also have a question and answer session after the talk. So you can post the questions in the chat or in the question and answer box. And you can also, ask the question live. Just a little bit of a background information. So National Science Week is an annual celebration of science, engineering, and technology, attracting thousands of learners and members of the public to workshops, science shows, and lectures, which are held at universities, schools, science centers, and public facilities countrywide. The Department of Science and Innovation leads this initiative, and the South African Agency for Science and Technology and Advancement, NRF SASTA, is responsible for its implementation. So each year we are having a different theme, and this year's theme is transforming lives through the evidence-based science. And this theme will expose the public to the evidence-based approach of problem solving and decision making, responding to the situations by using the available information that has been researched or experienced. It will inform the development of national science week activities across the diverse sectors and allow a robust engagement amongst the public. So apart from, of course, the National Science Week, we also have celebrating International Year. And this year's International Year is the International Year of Millets. And our guest speaker for this evening, Professor Hussein Shimelis, will actually very well fit into the both kind of themes that we are celebrating today. Just a little bit of background. Professor Hussein Shimelis has over 25 years of teaching and research experience in various institutions of higher learning in Ethiopia and South Africa. He's a respected scientist and educator based at the African Center for Crop Improvement, ACCI, at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. He has been a professor in plant breeding and a chair of crop science and is deputy director of the ACCI. He is a partner and member of the Africa's Demand-Led Plant Breeding, DLB, management team. Professor Shimelis and his graduates have developed and released more than 200 new crop varieties of food security crops widely grown across 18 African countries. And I think that's really remarkable. They have bred all the major crops in Africa, including cereals, so wheat, maize, sorghum, pearl millet, finger millet, rice, teff, and so on. Legumes, common bean, bambara, groundnut, cowpea, pigeon pea, soybean, fava bean, and root and tuber crops. So cassava, sweet potato, jam. Fruit and vegetable crops, matoke, banana, okra, melon, just to name but a few. As you can see, it's a big list. The new varieties adopted by farmers for food security and to serve local and regional markets. He has had a research collaboration with the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, ICRASAT, India and Kenya, and this collaboration has been assisting in the training of African scientists and research on the genomic-assisted breeding of sorghum, pearl millet, finger millet, pigeon pea, and groundnut. He has actively trained and developed new generation plant breeders in Africa. Since 2013, he has graduated to completion 52 doctoral and 31 master students and mentored 3 postdoc fellows from West, East, and Southern African countries. Whew. He has published over 300 articles in high-impact and peer-reviewed journals and over 250 abstracts in regional and international conference proceedings. His publications are relevant to issues related to small-scale agriculture and plant breeding programs in Africa and internationally. Professor Shimelis has a Scopus A index of 27, a Google Scholar Age index of 42, making him an outstanding scientist. based on publication output and academic impact database of the SciVal Elsevier ranking in the agricultural and biological science category over 2019 to 2022, Professor Shimelis was ranked in the top 5 in Africa out of 500 researchers. Professor Shimelis served as Deputy President in the Southern African Plant Breeders Association, SAPB, from 2016 to 2019. In 2022, Professor Hussein was recognized by SAPB as one of Africa's top 20 most influential plant breeders. Wow, what an achievement. Professor Shimelis graduated with an MSc in plant breeding from Wageningen University in the Netherlands and a PhD in plant breeding from the University of Free State in South Africa. Whew, and now I have to catch my breath. And now introduce me the man, which, has got like 2 pages of, aggregates. Please welcome Professor Shimelis and his talk tonight about millets. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tanya, for so generous introduction. I'm really humble about it, and I also thank everyone who is present here in front of my screen. I can see quite a number of you whom I know you very well. Welcome to this event. Good evening, everyone from Pietermaritzburg, University of KwaZulu-Natal, and welcome to today's presentation, which, as Tanya alluded, it's a double celebration. We celebrate the Science Week, and also we celebrate millets with me. So for the sake of the bandwidth, I just only stop the video, and also let me share my presentation with you. I hope I'm sharing with you. Can you see it? Tanya, can you confirm with me?
I can see your slide. You just have to start the video, please.
Okay, now I should do that. So what I will do, I will be showing just a 1 minute insert from the FAO, from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, so that you will at least grasp what I'm trying to talk to you.
I may be small, but I am strong. I grow where others cannot. I thrive in harsh and dry conditions, providing food when other harvests fail. I nurture soils and ecosystems and boost biodiversity. I am nutritious and delicious, and highly diverse in types and flavors. Rooted in ancient cultures and traditions, I am a powerful source of innovation. I want to share my benefits widely with all people and the planet. But I cannot do it alone, so bring me back to your table. I am millets.
So as you have heard, it's about I am millets. So today's talk will be all about millets. And as I said, we are celebrating the National Science Week and International Years of Millet, Year of Millets 2023. So thanks for Dr. Sally Frost for arranging this opportunity, for giving me the opportunity that I have to pitch and show and explain to our partners, collaborators about millets. And that was really a very good invite from you. And thank you so much for the opportunity. So my talk will focus on millets in 2023. And I hope you agree with me that I need to say this, because we have to discuss this important crops of African ancestry. And here I'll try to also connect it with what we do, what demand-led improvement in community of practice in Africa. There is a lot that we're doing in Africa on millets, and I want to share that with you tonight. So a little bit of background of the International Year of Millets 2023. The United Nations General Assembly in 2021, they declared the year the International Year of Millets. And the objective is very short and clear. It's to promote millets. We have to promote millets to the level that we can achieve maximum gains, yield gains, and economic opportunities from millets. So that's the main reason that UKZN has joined this celebration in partnership. Hello? In partnership with along with the National Science Week 2023. So this is done with partnership with the Department of Science and Innovation in the National Research Foundation of South Africa. So what's inspired the International Year of Millets in 2023 is because of the lessons from the International Year of Quinoa which was celebrated in 2013. So as most of you may know about quinoa, it's a small grain crop. You can see here at the top the crop, and at the bottom the grain. It's really widely sold in many supermarkets, in many outlets. Quinoa was neglected and underutilized staple crop, and it's originated from the Andean region, from South America. Before the IYQ 2013, only 15 countries grew quinoa. But after 2013, almost now 123 countries worldwide grow it. And quinoa is known as a superfood. Of course, it has gone through many ups and downs with a boom and bust cycle, as economists are saying. So now, based on that background, I want to share with you today about millets. What is this crop? Millets, as we all know, are climate smart and highly beneficial to human health. And we will distinguish in my talk the two types of millets, major and minor millets. I think I have to give also a disclosure at this juncture, and maybe some of you also may agree or not. As you have seen from the video, the insert that I showed, the FAO celebrates millets, including sorghum, pearl millet, and finger millet together. But most of us, I think most of us, we know that sorghum is not a millet. I am sure you agree with you. And sorghum is not a millet. But in some instances, because they are also from the same agroecological conditions, they grow in the harsh and difficult environment in Africa. The millets and the sorghum and other millets, which are the pearl millet and the finger millet, are somehow they have got the same attributes. And perhaps that could be the main reason that drives the FAO and the global community to celebrate these crops together. So that's really the main issue. But from my talk, you'll learn that I will be touching the most important grain, which is sorghum for Africa. And as we know that millets are a gift to the world from Africa. So be it sorghum or pearl millet or finger millet, it's a gift from Africa. And it has got its own production and marketing issues that I will try to describe it with you and for your general understanding. I will also discuss about who is doing the research, the science and development of millets in Africa and globally, actually, globally in Africa and South Africa. Then I will share about the demand-led millet breeding and the community of practice in Africa. I think this is really important for our networking and collaboration going forward. But you should pardon me that I should not be exhaustive to present everything possible in the region, at least. But at least I will offer some examples, case examples in terms of millet variety development, release, and commercialization. And also in the end, I will terminate my talk by asking or by presenting what support needs are needed for millet research and development in Africa and also internationally at large. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with millets, and really most of us are grown with millets production agroecology. So even myself, I was from the farming community. My parents were grown sorghum, and I know it when I was a child. So millets are small seeded grain crops, and they're typically from semi-arid and tropical regions. So they are harsh crops. They are adapted in very difficult circumstances for different agroecologies. And there are small grains, as you can see here, and they derive many products for human health and for many economic activities. You will notice that this is a bread from sorghum that I took it, I take the picture myself from the international conference recently held in France, in Montpellier, France. And then you can make some breads, some injera, which is typical bread from Ethiopia. Of course, it has to be blended with other flour, like teff and other, also even maize in some instances. And also it is popular drinks, like local drinks, like umkomboti, which is a typical traditional drink for celebration of weddings and other ceremonies in Africa, is in South Africa typically is known, even Ethiopia also, and as Sudan, Kenya, there is a high level of local brews are made for many regional celebrations. Of course, now we will find it in many supermarkets in different forms and shapes. And one of also the interesting aspect, the first time that I had sorghum beer was in Tanzania, which is called Eagle. It's really a wonderful beer made of sorghum. So you will see that many products are derived from sorghum, including biofuels, bioplastic industries, which are the millets. It's grown in more than 25 countries globally, and the climate, and because these crops are more climate resilient and nutritious crops, the grain is used for food, feed, and drinks, and in the stock, as we know, it's used for livestock feed and thatching of houses, and also as a fence construction. In some instances, the stock is used as fuel wood. The shoot stem sorghum is used for biofuel and bioplastics. And as I described it, also some bread and alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages are prepared from millets. It's rich in many nutrients, calcium, iron, dietary fiber. I will describe this in the next slide, which is really very interesting. And one of the most significant value of millets is that they are all gluten-free. So they're really good for human health, especially people with gluten intolerance. They have been really declared to be useful for people with diabetics and also to manage some weight gain, and at the same time it's good for bone development and to protect anemia because they are a source of iron too, and many other uses. So those health benefits, and at the same time also the ability to grow in harsh agroecologies, makes millet as a niche market opportunities, which is being explored globally nowadays. So what are the socio-economic values of the millets? Africa is the center of origin and genetic diversity of millets. So most millets are originated from Africa, and more than 300 million people are growing millets in Africa. The global production area is almost 33 million, or if not above. And in Africa, as we know, there are crops of smallholder crops. There are smallholder crops. And the main reason is that because they can grow under rain-fed conditions without irrigation and any really much maximum production inputs. And they can thrive in harsh and marginal conditions like under drought-prone environments, in fertile and poor soil conditions, and especially saline soils, high temperatures, exceeding, in some instances, it can recover from high temperature shock from 50 degrees centigrade and above. It quickly recover from that. So there is a low risk of crop failure compared to other major crops. You will notice that this is a picture of sorghum, which is taken from the northern part of Ethiopia. And it grows like this, even it's very taller and bigger than sugar cane. So these places are mostly drought affected and mostly water limited environments. So being also the crop in the tropical region, it has got efficient photosynthesis. It has got C4 photosynthesis with very efficient in terms of water use and also radiation use efficiency. So it has got many values. What are the human benefits of millets? Millets and human health benefits. They are gluten-free and low in glycemic index. The glycemic index is a blood sugar. The blood sugar content after consuming millets-derived food is low, and that is low, which is really important. And you will notice that also most of the food scientists and food technologists claim that millets are rich in phenolic compounds and antioxidants, especially the red-seeded sorghum is known for that. So the regular consumption is useful to lower the risks of diabetes and obesity, and also improve some cholesterol levels. And at the same time, reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, being the gluten-free and they have got really healthy diets. This will be interesting slide to share, which is comparing the nutrients present in sorghum, maize, wheat, oat, rice, and quinoa. According to the Sorghum Checkoff, it's one of the organizations in the US, which works on behalf of sorghum producers and marketers. So the whole grain sorghum is an excellent source of 12 essential nutrients, which are more than maize, wheat, oat, rice, and quinoa. So you will notice that sorghum is green, which is an excellent source of more than 20% of the daily value of the food we consume. It consists of protein, fiber, phosphorus, zinc, thiamine, and niacin, and all of the most important ones, selenium, copper, iron, magnesium, and manganese. So when you compare it with other crops, you really believe yourself that sorghum is really a neglected, underutilized crop, but the nutritional value is far better than even our major crops that we're daily consuming. Maize, if you compare with maize, and wheat, relatively, quinoa has got most of it's regarded as a good source of these nutrients. So all in all, I think consuming millets, including sorghum, will be a healthy food for human well-being. So that's really very interesting to see that. And then one important catching point here is in the US, the USDA have already included sorghum as a new addition as food buying guide in 2022. So it means that there is a high level of really regard and also value. The value is appreciated and it's being now marketed and sold in the US as one of the excellent food source, which is really amazing, which was not there some years ago. So which is high potential now for future marketing and economic opportunities in terms of trade and other possibilities. So what are the major millets? Millets, there are 3 types of millets. We know sorghum. You know that sorghum can be of different size and shape, and the heads are different heads, as you can see from my image here. And the pearl millet is the one in the middle, which has got a unique panicle or head inflorescence, which is really taller and like this. Then the finger millets have got these attributes, where very short, like the size is more or less like the size of wheat and barley. For some of you, you know these crops. And what makes it finger is when you see the head or the panicle, it looks like a finger, human finger actually. Sometimes there are 5, if not less, but mostly there are 5. So sorghum is the 5th, and pearl millet is the 6th most important cereals after maize, rice, wheat, and barley in terms of total production. So they have got a global significance. Then we have got minor millets. Minor millets includes like foxtail millets, as you can see from here, the barnyard millets, and proso millets. These are not common in Africa, and they are widely grown in Asia. They are the major food sources in Asia, and China, India, and other Asian countries. But they are also regarded as millets and minor millets because they are not produced widely. So what are the role of millets in 2023 now? When you see it now, really millets, especially sorghum, is globally important crop now. It's grown obviously in Africa, Brazil, Argentina, India, China, USA, Australia, and Europe. In Europe, you can't really appreciate that the Europeans have got now members of the sorghum ID community. They have got many members that includes farmers association, seed companies, sectorial associations, and seed producers, processing companies, and research institutes. So in Europe, this sorghum is regarded as a key to build our future. It's just here showing here, and I took this slide from the presentation at the sorghum conference in June. So you will notice that really the importance of these crops is really well recognized and appreciated now, because they are resilient crops to climate change, and at the same time they have got many packed nutrients for human health. So they are regarded as future crops. In India, in fact, rebranded millets as Nutri cereals. Even in Zimbabwe, the government of Zimbabwe has declared them as future crops of Africa. So there is really increased interest in millet production because of these different values. As I said, millets are a gift from Africa to the world. And why we say that is starting from the Vavilov. I think most of you may know Nikolai Ivanovich Vavilov from our biology or from Introduction to Plant Breeding. The center of origin and diversity of millets is Africa, especially the Southern Africa, which are finger millet, pearl millet, and sorghum are found in a high genetic diversity, as well as also East Africa, which includes sorghum, pearl millet, and finger millet in order of importance. West Africa is also a known center of diversity, genetic diversity for sorghum. So you will notice that millets are the home of millets, center of origin and diversity is in Africa. So now every country is in North America, in the South America, and Asia, and Australia is growing sorghum and major millets widely. So what are the constraints, the key issues for millet production and marketing? There are quite common issues that I want to highlight here. I think the number one issue is a lack of farmer and market preferred varieties and the production inputs, especially. I think this is common to everywhere. And in Africa, especially, we have got most farmers are using traditional varieties, or we call them land races. The issue with traditional varieties, they have got many benefits to the farmers. We realize that, from the food quality, drought tolerance, and many other, also the ability to grow in under low production input. Unfortunately, the yield of most land races are very low, and there is potential to increase that yield to 4 to 6 tons per hectare, or in some, even in Australia, they reported 8 to 10 tons per hectare. So there is a possibility of really increasing the yield gains if the new varieties are developed and released to the farmers. Quite a number of biotic and abiotic stress are also the issue in millet production: anthracnose, blast, mildew, and long smut diseases. Insect pests such as grasshopper, shoot fly, stem borers, and lately also, especially in the Latin, in the South America, sugarcane aphids. Even in the US is a problem now, sugarcane aphids. The weeds are many. The leading problem is Striga species, Striga harmonica, and Striga asiatica really are the very problematic weed for sorghum production. And of course, also due to climate change, drought stress, which when it's severe and early onset can affect sorghum production and any other millets. Even if sorghum is drought tolerant, especially, it only requires really sufficient amount of water during the early establishment until like 60 or 70 centimeter, and also during flowering and seed set. Otherwise, sorghum is a tough crop. It can really grow with limited amount of water. And that's why we found it in most tropical countries, in arid and semi-arid areas. So there is no formal research and development on most millet improvements. And there is also one issue is also product development and marketing. I think there are very, very limited, if not non-existing, that there are no much known products which are derived from millet and sorghum. Funding is a major issue, and most countries are not really allocating funds to millet development. And one issue also is the lifestyle changes, the use, even from the millet growing countries, they don't really consume that much millets, even if those health benefits that I mentioned before. And also limits, there is limited advocacy in terms of making them more popular and healthy. So that requires some kind of work in the long run. Who does research and development of millet globally? The International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, as we know as ICRISAT, which is situated in the Hyderabad, India, is a global organization, a global hub of millet research and development. So they do really extensive work in Asia and in Africa. And in fact, in Africa, there are two regional hubs. One is in Nairobi, Kenya, and the other is Bamako, Mali. And there are other country offices in Niger, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Mozambique, and Ethiopia. So they do remarkable work in terms of new variety development and supporting the national research programs to release millets in Africa. And then other national research programs in Africa, Australia, and in the Americas, and including the USA, Kansas State University, Texas A&M, and also in Europe, as I said, by the Sorghum ID, the Advanced Sorghum Research and Development. So you can, just for your information, and in 2026, the next global sorghum conference will happen in the US, and is hosted by the Texas A&M. So it means now sorghum is changing its landscape from Africa to Europe and to the US. In South Africa, the Department of Science and Innovation has taken the initiative, the lead now, in terms of driving the research and development in South Africa, along with the Sorghum Trust, and the Trust has developed recently the Sorghum Cluster Initiative, the Sorghum Cluster Initiative, which UKZN is part of that. So the other research being conducted is ARC Grain Crop Institute. It used to be institute, but there's a lot of work done by ARC also. The universities, UKZN, University of Pretoria, especially Professor John Taylor and his team in the food science and nutrition, they did a lot of work on sorghum. University of Free State, and especially on disease resistance breeding, and also some new variety development initiatives. There is a significant work there. University of Limpopo, I know there are some limited activities there. But there is one private sector in South Africa, it's Sorgo, which is also active, even if there is also interest from Corteva to extend the sorghum portfolio also in South Africa and in Africa. So these are the major actors in research and development on millets. So next, we'll discuss on demand-led breeding. I think for your information, if I guide you really to see the two photos, the one at the top, the one at the bottom, you will see some differences. At the top, these are the women farmers who are really appreciating the height of the sorghum, how tall it is, and the biomass, the total biomass. Of course, also the grain, that is the head that you can see. But at the bottom, this woman is really interested in the grain, but the sorghum is clearly, it's very short. So now when you breed, this is in Western Tanzania, this is in Namibia. If not also, this is also common in Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, and all other Eastern African countries. Farmers are really preferring high biomass sorghum because it has multiple utilities of the sorghum, the grain, the stalk, and you name it. So now if you release these varieties to her situation, she may not be interested, or vice versa. So we say that when you breed high-performing crop varieties, sorghum varieties, we should really focus on the customer focus. Let's focus on the customer so that these varieties can be adopted by the farmers in the future. So we say that we have to be demand-led plant breeders because it's a business, and let's follow the business approach of doing that. So then millet improvement must be responsive to farmers and market requirements. And we need to follow some demand-led approach. So what are these approaches most likely? I think the approach is we have to set our breeding goals and that requires our vision and foresight. We should know our clients, our customers. We should have a very good tool to design excellent variety with also very good product profile. We should follow our breeding strategies and stage plans and adapt to the changes, see the environment, and modify the breeding goals and other activities if necessary. Of course, we have to include monitoring and evaluation and learning in our activities. Let's make also cases, business cases, so that we have got new funds and other supports in order to make the demanded millet improvement. And this information is available for some of you who may not know it. The business of plant breeding, which is done by the demand-led breeding that Tanya introduced in the first case. So that book is available now for free online, which really describes what I try to mention about these aspects of demand-led breeding. So, and the enablers for demand-led breeding are best practices in your variety design and also product profiling, good education and training, at the same time also policy support and advocacy. If we have got these components, they should be enabled to do demand-led breeding. So in the end, we say that demand-led breeders are those who involve clients, stakeholders, the value chain, and considering all the needs of all the parties that are taking your millets or any of new varieties. And the plant breeders must also, the millet breeders must understand the science and business domains in order for the new varieties to be released, adopted, and used by the community. So on the coming slides, I will share on the millets improvement and community of practice in Africa. So here I mentioned that I may not be exhaustive because really I didn't have the time to review all these and at the same time also to represent you. But here I will try to share some of the community of practice happening at least with UKZN and partners. I think charity begins at home, and I will start from what we do at UKZN. And Prof. Lang, Mark Lang, and myself, I think we have been doing for quite a long time on developing sweet stem sorghum adapted to South African condition. We focused on for biofuel and at the same time herbicide resistance. And it was supported, the funding started from the old time from Plant Bio and through TIA, Technology Innovation Agency. And here we really done a lot of work in terms of the genetic resource and breeding methods. So we have the required genetic resources, which now we are planning to do with the Sorghum Cluster Initiative collaborators to use it in South Africa for variety development. And we have got more than 500 collections in our gene bank. We also try to induce genetic variation through our partnership with the Japanese collaborators using cyclotron. We also use some ethyl EMS mutagenesis. So we have developed some mutants to enhance our pre-breeding activities. Recently, we are doing on testing on male gametophytes and hybrid breeding on sorghum, because that's, I think, the most important activity to consider in terms of new variety design. The other approach we do is, as I said, striga is the major problem in Africa, and striga resistant, force compatible, and high yielding varieties are the needs in most African countries. And as we know, if you see the pictures to the right side of your screen, you will see Gogo, the woman, the old woman. She's a little bit down because when she sees her crops, the production, the heads of the sorghum is very disappointing. And you will notice that it's already taken up by striga harmontica. And then this, the one at the below is again striga, and which striga, as you know, it's sometimes referred as witchweed. So this is the crop, the sorghum crop. Now the crop has been already damaged, completely taken by the weed. So striga is really the major issue in terms of sorghum production in Africa. So what we did at UKZN through our research, with many of the postgraduate students that we have been trained so far is the use of different approach. Resistant varieties, even biocontrol method. The biocontrol agent is a FOS. The FOS is standing for Fusarium oxysporum. It's a forma specialis for striga. So this fungus is really killing the striga weed. It can arrest, can kill the striga when the weed is in contact with the fungus. So we're trying to breed sorghum, which are striga tolerant and resistant, especially by not producing a lot of stimulants that will germinate the striga seed. So low stimulants, reduced metabolites, providing less metabolites for the striga, and at the same time being also a mechanical barrier for the weed. You can select some sorghum varieties. So sorghum incompatible, sorghum when it's grown with a compatible FOS, it can be a double protection. It has got its own resistance. It's compatible to this fungus, which is not against sorghum. In fact, it serves as, it takes food from sorghum. At the same time also, it gives some protection of sorghum against the striga. So we're exploring these methods in our breeding programs with many of the postgraduates that we trained on sorghum and pearl millet improvement programs in Africa. So this triotropic interaction is really one which we found very promising, and I will discuss now also in my subsequent slides that we have released few varieties of sorghum based on this approach. And the next slide is showing how the breeding for drought tolerance has also led to the improvement, the release of new sorghum varieties in Namibia. Dr. Wanga Atan, who is from Namibia, you can see his picture here. He graduated from us recently, and he did excellent work in terms of breeding sorghum. He's selecting through a deep root system sorghum types with a very good profile. And as I said, with a high grain yield, and at the same time also with another array of product profile on sorghum. So he was supported through the International Atomic Energy Agency, and at the same time his ministry, the Ministry of Agriculture, Water and Land Reforms in Namibia, in partnership with UKZN, CCI. So he has done some varieties released I will mention as the impact in my slides to come. So in fact, also the Namibian team has been very strong in terms of mobilizing the regional researchers, including from Egypt, Tunisia, up the north and also West Africa. And Dr. Ashok is also one of the experts who came from ECRISAT during this training with me. And Dr. Lydia was actually spearheading that training activity. And as you can see at the background, the work was more on sorghum. And so the team learned how the breeding activity happened, how the new varieties were released in Namibia. So that was excellent support from the International Atomic Energy and AFRA in Africa. Then we have also a very interesting study by the PhD candidate, Mohammed Ahmed Yahya. He is from Nigeria. He's also focusing on breeding for drought tolerance in the arid zones of Nigeria. He is from the Institute for Agriculture Research in Samaru, Ahmadu Bello University. Mohammed has been supported by ECRISAT and HOPE2 sorghum projects to do his PhD with us. He did a lot of screening of many varieties, new genotypes of sorghum for drought tolerance and controlled condition in the tunnel, and also field condition with some customized waterproof facilities that we have at the ACCI. So he selected those materials and took them to fields in Nigeria, and he found some interesting genotypes. He did some crosses, he developed new population. So going forward, he will definitely release those drought tolerant sorghum in Nigeria. Then also Charles Sandiko in Uganda is one of the students, a PhD candidate with us. He does on improving sorghum for enhanced nutrition quality. He targets on iron and zinc content. he has already evaluated more than 348 genotypes for different agromorphological traits, economic traits, and at the same time for nutritional profile. So he developed some new lines and at the same time new breeding populations, which passed through screening of the near and other techniques, which will be released in Uganda. He is supported by the National Agriculture Research Organization and also the National Semi-Arid Research Institute. He is funded through the ICRISAT and POP. One of the remarkable work also was done by, I'm sure some of you know, Dr. Walter D'Emiliano. He is a passionate breeder. He really likes working on sorghum. His target was to take sorghum to the Netherlands, the northern Europe countries. So he succeeded. He did some of our crosses, development of crosses with us here in South Africa. He evaluated them in the Netherlands. You can't believe that this is sorghum in the Netherlands. So you will see that it's set seed and produce well, but when the temperature is very low, ultra low, then the sorghum dies. So he was successful. He was successful in selecting these varieties. And in fact, most of the European researchers might have, I think, stimulated or motivated by his activity in the Netherlands. So we did that in collaboration with one of our PhD student, Francis Okot, in Sierra Leone. And his seed company is an African seed company that he works on exclusively on sorghum. Another partner community of practice is from Burkina Faso, Dr. Armel Ruamba. He is doing on pearl millet. He's the first person to do pearl millet with us. And he also breeds for resistance against Striga harmontica and compatibility to that fungus, which is on the same approach that Dr. Mrema, as I mentioned, on sorghum did. By the way, before Dr. Mrema, also Dr. Rebecca Gabramadhan from Ethiopia also used that technique. In fact, she is the one who brought that fusarium from Ethiopia when that was discovered from sorghum plants. So he has also extensively done a lot of germplasm evaluation. He's busy with developing new breeding population with Striga resistant. As you can see here, some of these spots these are the pearl millet plants, which are grown with Striga. And you notice that Striga is fully taken over the roots of pearl millet. So this is the damage now. When it takes all food as a parasite, it's a parasitic weed, by the way. So when it takes all the food of the crop, then the crop dies, you have no harvest at all. So he has got some promising lines with Striga resistance. And then we have also studies on finger millet in Ethiopia by the Ethiopian Institute of Agricultural Research. Adana, he's also one of our PhD candidates. He does for drought tolerance to develop new lines of finger millet for drought tolerance. He developed a lot of crosses and selected many candidates. He is busy now screening for drought tolerance. At the same time, also his lines, he worked on more than 500 accessions of finger millet. He evaluated them for food quality at the same time. And he has got really interesting result, which will be released on new varieties. So what are the impacts really in terms of, after doing all this, what impact can you see? Or are there some examples in terms of variety development, release and commercialization? Yes, indeed. I mean, I'm reporting only the recent one. But as I mentioned, as Tanya mentioned, ACCI graduates have released many crop varieties, but I am just only focusing on the recent one. One interesting result is the work in Tanzania, which is Dr. Emmanuel and us, where 2 Striga resistant varieties were released recently, which is funded through TIA and TARI, Tanzania Agriculture Research Institute, and the ACCI. And these varieties, as you can see, I think the second slide are shown here, which are really uniform and good, best performing. This is one variety, and this is the second variety that I showed at the beginning. So the two varieties are high yielding, striker resistant, and frost compatible, which are now widely grown in Western Tanzania. And the plan is also to evaluate, to test them in South Africa and release them if we found them promising also to South African condition. And the new varieties were acknowledged by the South African Plant Breeders Association, and they posted them on the Wall of Fame in 2022. And thanks for doing that. So in terms of sorghum, the Namibia team also has really released very promising varieties. They are referred as NAMSO series, Namibian sorghum series, from series 01 to 5. And they have got wide different profiles or attributes and they are mostly useful for forage and brewing, with the plant height, the seed color, maturity dates, and all those profiles are available, which is, I'm not really discussing it in detail now, but the team has been really successful thanks to the support. Thanks to the support of the IAEA, and at the same time, the minister. So what are the major millet research and development support needs and way forward? This slide will conclude my talk. I think millets, as you have heard from my presentation, they are climate smart and healthy food, which are really important crops that we cannot really disagree on that. But there are some support needs that the research and development should get. One, in terms of developing new varieties, we need to have high performing, high yielding, open pollinated or hybrid varieties. And that's dependent on the plant breeding and variety development. Secondly, modernizing the crop production management inputs and practice. This is really important, that we need to, still in some smallholder farmers, the way they produce, the way they manage the crop, and the production inputs are really minimal and not bolstering, not really enhancing the productivity. And at the same time, the small-scale producers should be also supported in terms of when it comes to even given a special emphasis for millet production and as a support needs, by also establishing maybe enterprises for millet production in Africa. Also, equally, the value-added millet production. Value addition is really what is needed here. And this is the work of most food scientists and food technologists. Value addition is really important in order to make some output out of sorghum. Post-harvest processing, storage, and handling technologies and innovations are really important. In fact, in some places, it's not about the production. It's after the production that they don't keep the harvest in the right environment, and it's really wasted after production. So we need those innovations and technologies. Commercialization strategies, I think we should really design how to commercialize them within the region, also in Asia and other market outlets. Strengthening the community of practice, research and development, and advocacy on millets is really important. And I believe this and others that I didn't mention can support and transform the millet industry in Africa and nationally. So I think having that said, it will be the conclusion and with some thank you. And if you can see this really amazing, the sorghum farms in Ethiopia, which shows how extensively sorghum is growing on those in the northern Ethiopia. And these are in Namibia, the seed production of pearl millet that you can see. And sorghum has got many head and panicle types, and you can see that these are got different values for production and the marketing. And I think that brings to me to the first slide, and I hope I have not taken much of the time, Tanya, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Shimelis. And it was really, really an eye-opener for me. And I have to confess, I have to out myself that I've never ever heard of millets before, before the International Year of Millets. So I think it's a very good initiative, and I hope that it's going to kick off as the quinoa in 2013. That would be really great. And I think we have time for one or two questions. So if somebody wants to raise their hands, please. Anybody a question? If nobody has a question, then I have a question. I always have questions, you know. Oh, there are two hands up. And I can't really see whose hand are up.
No, Charles.
Timmy
is
Timmy
Charles.
Baloyi, if you can just
and
unmute
Charles.
yourself and ask your question, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Shimelis, for that exciting presentation. A lot of work, going on in terms of improving the productivity of the millets. Two quick questions, Professor Shimelis. Bed damage is a very serious production constraint in Southern Africa, particularly here in Zimbabwe. And then again, post-harvest processing, compared to maize. There are still serious challenges in terms of lack of appropriate, processing equipment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I respond, Tanya?
Yeah, sure, please.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charles. Really, these are the questions I'm expecting. Bird damage is an issue, and interestingly, also the sorghum cluster initiative, that is one of the priority in the research in South Africa, and they have got really very good proposal, and I believe that project proposal can develop some products. The aim is to have some products which are bird repellents, which is really interesting. But if you see in other African countries, like this picture, the reason I brought this picture is just to show that the extensive production of sorghum. In these areas, birds are not a problem because they are scattered across different farms. And farmers, somehow, they use some scarers and limited methods to really scare birds and to make them away, except the Kwela bird. I'm sure you that is a very difficult bird. It comes in masses, in hundreds and thousands, then that can be an issue. So there is something going on in South Africa, Charles, about developing bird repellents. That will be one interesting thing. The second one is post-harvest. It's true, post-harvest is not developed for sorghum and other millets. But what I noticed now from the current workshop that we attended in France, I think there is a global initiative now. There is a global initiative to come with new techniques, new methods, how to harvest sorghum from the field and then process them in a desirable package and so on. So that's also emerging, which is a very good thing for Africa because those facilities are also coming to the continent. Otherwise, I agree with you. Post-harvest processing and packaging is really critical. Thank you.
And I think Timmy Baloyi, you all had your hand up for quite some time. If you want to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Prof, for the great presentation. I'd just like to find out, you've mentioned there's a yield potential of up to 6 tons per hectare. Would this be under dry land or irrigation? And roughly how much per ton would it cost? Would one sell sorghum for? And if there isn't any competition with other crops, particularly in South Africa, you'll realize that a lot of the farmers would be reluctant on giving off maize planting, also looking at the planting time in which sorghum is being planted. If you could perhaps also outline perhaps modalities around that, I would appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Timmy. I think that's a very good question too. Sorghum is not really an irrigated crop from the onset. Sorghum requires water during the early establishment time, and at the same time, as I said, during flowering and heading. So even if we supply irrigation, there should be a limited amount of water compared to maize, compared to wheat and other water demanding crops. So sorghum it has got really that attributes compared to others. And the reports that I said 4 to 6, even Australia and the from University of Queensland, they reported to 8 to 10 tons per hectare. So it is really high yielding, short and high harvest index types. So, and I think they use some limited irrigation also in Queensland area. So it requires some limited irrigation. Thank you.
And I think Fatma Sasu was she already posted something in the in the question and answer. Fatma, you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Tanya, and thank you very much, Professor. Very comprehensive presentation, and it's very timing, as you said, is the most important time for this year. FAO declared as a millet years, and I know you are plant breeder. I as well. As a plant breeder, do you think that which millets, apart from sorghum, don't count sorghum, are the most important as breeder? If you have a chance to select, which 3 millets you will select, and what are the main traits needs to be? I don't want to say all. I don't want to ask all. We all know all needed. The most important for you is the most important 3 traits in Africa. That is.
Yes.
I know that you know a region very well. That's why I want to learn your point of view.
No, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sarsu. Dr. Sarsu is from the International Atomic Energy Agency. She's a very good collaborator for me and partner. So sorghum is sorghum. That's our really number one. But in terms of millets, obviously we have got 2 major millets. One is pearl millet, the other one is finger millet. And these crops like pearl millet is really very, very nutritious in terms of its nutrition and health value. Pearl millet, it's called mahungu in Namibia. It's really a wonderful food. When I tested it myself, I really said I should go with that forever. It's really excellent food. So in terms of its nutrition, and really its adaptation to grow in dry areas like Namibia, it's really amazing. So I will prioritize really pearl millet followed by finger millet. And the main reason is that economic opportunities and other food value. And also in terms of the culture of eating them in Africa, I think pearl millet is widely consumed compared to finger millet. So I go for pearl millet followed by finger millet. And the breeding goals, we should aim for good yields in these crops, high yields, obviously number one. Then drought tolerance, another issue, drought tolerance, and at the same time also the feed value, nutrition value, I think going forward. So this and other, depending on the country requirements, it varies from country to country. But yield, drought tolerance, and nutrient contents are the main breeding goals.
Thank you, Prof. Well noted. Thank you.
And I've got another question from in the chat from Demisov Ababulgu. Some people say that millets cause constipation because of high tannin content. Professor Shimelis, if you can just briefly, because we are running out of time, just quickly answer.
Okay. Dr. Demisov, it's good to hear that, and it's a very interesting question. I think it's not all millets that have got that quality. Remember, millets are not the same, or sorghum is not the same. So it varies from type to type, from variety to variety. So otherwise, there is no issue of constipation. In fact, do you know that sorghum food is easily just most of the times as a waste? It's not even that the main reason that sorghum is not digestible. Sorghum is not that much digestible. That's the main reason that it's not allowing, say, high body weight gain and so on. So the constipation maybe is dependent on the variety and the processing method. Otherwise, all varieties do not lead to constipation, and I have not heard of commonly them.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Mutulisi Siwela, please, if you want to ask a question quickly, keep it short, please.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Shimelis. And a quick one, do you see any trends, maybe in the past 10 years and going forward, any trends of commercial uptake by the commercial food processing industry for the millets, let's say in Southern Africa or in Sub-Saharan Africa, where they are using it in making commercial products? Is there a big uptake, or is there a future for the farmers to produce and sell for commercial food processing?
Yes, that's true. Thank you, Prof. Sewell. I think the University of Pretoria, and I'm sure you are aware that they do good product development. So there are a lot of products, sorghum and millet products, and including the flours like mabele. I think it's mabele, and it's sometimes salted and unsalted. We buy also from supermarket, myself for our family. We buy those flours to make some stuff, food stuff in the house. So there are a flour which are processed and flavored and commercialized. The other one is there is also some drinks which processed drinks like yogi sip, and other also processed products are available, including say for instance in terms of sorghum, there is a popping sorghum like maize. So there are some new development which are emerging, which is coming, but we need to really develop that. We need to commercialize, market that going forward. So, but there is some initiative, especially in South Africa, there is. And the food scientists is where now your job is really to advance that, Prof. Sewell.
And the last question comes from Retabile Memana. Can I just please ask you to answer the poll questions? It really helps us with the feedback on if we're doing a good job or if we should stop the lectures or something like this. So please take your time and answer the questions. And I will take the last question from Retabile Memana, please.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm based in South Africa in Welkom in the Free State, and I'm a sorghum agro processor for the past 13 years. And where I am based in Free State, we are actually yielding, I think, about 70 hectares for now, but we are also supplying the supermarkets. There is also a high consumption in our local mines. So answering to Mr. Sewell, I can actually say yes. In terms of the agro processing in farmers, there is that demand. However, we as SMMEs in agro processing, the issue that we are currently facing, or maybe in my experience in the past 13 years, the issue of finance or funding, access to processing equipment. As now I have managed to have a 300-liter producing sorghum drink that I also supply. And I'm currently in research with Northwest in terms of doing the dried sorghum. However, the challenge is still the finance in order for us as an SMME to commercialize the product, but the demand is there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that's really useful input. Thank you.
Okay, so I think this is almost it. So even though we've finished our National Science Week talks, so please don't be disappointed because we have more in line. We have other exciting talks coming up. The next one will be on the 4th of October, where we are celebrating the start of World Space Week with Professor Kavelin Moodley. And here we were talking about the research that has been done with the HIREX telescope. So I think that's really quite interesting from what I've seen that he put down in his abstract. So please don't forget to diarize, 4th of October, this time, half an hour earlier from 5 to 6 p.m. It's almost the end of our talk, and I would now like to take this opportunity to thank a few people. Of course, Professor Shimelis for his insightful and eye-opening talk about millets. And as I said, I had no clue about millets, and I hope that, this really shoots off. Dr. Sally Frost, who coordinated this event, Asok Raj, who designed the invitations and the wonderful backgrounds, the DSI and SASTA for providing such a great platform to highlight science and engineering and for sponsoring the event, and the countless people in the back, of course, who helped spreading the message. So please remember to join us on the 4th of October for Professor Moodley's talk. And now, if you want to please unmute yourself and put your hands together for Professor Shimelis. Please, everybody, unmute yourself. And I think this is absolutely well done. Great talk, Professor. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, Prof. Well done.
Thank you,
Prof.
All right.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Prof.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Bye.